So where do Agile contracts and Agile programs go wrong? Well, stick around and that's what we're going to talk about. But first, good evening, Agile acquisition enthusiasts. Welcome back to the Underground Digital Tiki Bar. It's Friday night, and that means it's time for another episode. So cheers. All right. So over the years, a lot of adoption for Agile acquisition and Agile programs has really swept up across the federal government, and that's great to see. I remember early on when I started talking about these things, it was sort of kind of like the wild idea in the back corner, but now you see it everywhere. There's lots of panels and discussions. There's entire conferences set up to talk about Agile development, Agile acquisitions, and adoption, and that's wonderful. But Agile alone doesn't make everything perfect. You still have lots of challenges and you have to work hard. I often say it's not that Agile is less work. In some ways, it's maybe more or at least the same amount. It's just the work you're doing is very easy to measure and understand that there's value, or if there's not value, to change it. So there's a lot of activity and effort that has to go in to make an Agile program go well. But sometimes it doesn't. And what are some of the causes that can make an Agile program fail? One is leadership, right? You have to really empower someone on the government side to be a product owner, to make technical decisions at their level and be able to move the project forward. So empowering a leader is a big part of that. And oftentimes you'll see agencies or government organizations that are trying to implement Agile for the first time will take people that are maybe program managers, probably excellent program managers, and just sort of make them product owners. And those are two very different skill sets. So having the right people with the right skill sets is really important to making an Agile program successful. Additionally, you have to make sure that no matter how you structure an Agile program, whether it's fixed price per iteration, or whether it's time and material, or even if it's cost reimbursable, there's all sorts of ways you can do it. And I have thoughts in other videos that talk about different approaches and the pros and cons. But regardless of how you do it, the most important thing is a trusting relationship between the government and the contractor. Because part of Agile contracts is the sort of undefined scope or the undefined delivery of the requirements. So you need to have a way to frame it and then to measure it. But you also have to have that sort of understanding and trust to be able to deal with situations, because if you were to set up fixed price per iteration, for example, there's going to be situations where the capacity is not equal to the velocity, and there could be all sorts of reasons, whether it's the contractor's fault or the government's fault. And how you deal with that really can set up how the rest of the contract goes. So if the contractor doesn't deliver 100% of the velocity, under a fixed price per iteration, some contracting officers or program product owners might choose to take a path to say, well, it's a fixed price. This is what you said you were going to do. You didn't do it. And so now you owe me, or I'm not going to pay you. And even if that makes you feel like you're doing the right thing, what you're ultimately going to do is incentivize the contractor when you're evaluating future stories to be more conservative, because, you slap them across the wrist or the back of the hand, and, they want to make sure that they're protecting themselves. So when they're looking at a user story, they might build in a little bit of cushion. And ultimately what that's going to mean for the government is you're going to start doing the opposite, right? You're going to start being a little bit more stringent. And now you've just kind of created this sort of unnecessary tension between the two groups, because remember, the true purpose of Agile development is to deliver value to the end user as soon as possible. So I always like to think of each iteration as the delivery of functional product, and I measure quality, not quantity. I want to be much more interested in, is what I'm getting working? Is the end user happy? How much I'm getting, I'm less concerned about, because we can decide over the course of the contract how to deal with that, whether we continue with this vendor, whether we look for another vendor over time. And that's the incentive for the vendor to do their best work and keep their A team. So really the biggest risk I see, so sometimes you'll even see contracts set up for literally capacity-based contracts. So like each story point is worth a fixed amount. And so each iteration is a collection of story points. And again, this is sort of rife with opportunity for tension. And really what you need to get to, and you could argue also for time and material, the vendor might be incentivized to take more time and the government incentivized to allow less time. And really all of this does is create unnecessary conflict when what you really need to do is focus on delivering value. So what I recommend is use a contract type that you're comfortable with, set up the story points and user story, sprint planning to be a comfortable way that both parties can agree with, and then just iterate on that, just like you're iterating on the products or capabilities that you're delivering. Over time, you'll learn what's working, what's not working, and you just have to continue to make constant improvement as long as both parties are aligned with delivering value to the end users. So there you have it. Those are some of the common mistakes I see in Agile development and Agile contracting, and some ways to think about how to deal with those. I hope this was helpful. If it was, give me a thumbs up. Remember to subscribe, and until next week, cheers.